Hi, I'm Carol Walker and my podcast, Freedom for Wild Horses. And I'm very honored to have as my guest today, Sandy Sisti. And she's an award winning photographer of horses and wildlife. And she has been following the McCullough Peaks herd for over 14 years. And she lives near the area. And so she's out there a lot. And she follows the families and knows their stories and knows all about them. And she cares deeply about these horses. And she's so willing to share about her experiences and about the horses. And so today we are going to be talking about the environmental assessment that has been put out by the BLM, where they are talking about removing a large portion of the herd during November. And so we really need you to comment and to say that this plan is not a good one. So we're going to talk about that today. And on my website, I'll have links to her blog and also her talking points for comments. And hopefully that will help you. So thank you, Sandy. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Carol, for having me. I'm honored.
So, Sandy, tell us a little bit about what this environmental assessment says.
Well, to be honest with you, it says so many different things. It's hard to discern exactly what's going on with environmental assessment. But in essence, the plan is to remove a portion of the herd to bring it within AML. So the AML is 70 to 140 horses. We're not really sure how many they're going to remove. Currently on the range now are 181 horses. 3 horses have since, we think, passed away, so it would be 178, but it says 181 in the EA, and I understand that they're going to do another count before, so that will be adjusted.
Okay.
But the EA states that they're going to remove through a bait trapping operation a certain number of horses to bring that number down into the AML of 70 to 140.
Okay. And isn't this herd the one that the BLM has held up to everybody for years, saying it's the gold standard, birth control works, PZP works to control the population? Look what a good job they're doing at this. And then they turn around and want to remove horses.
I know you're absolutely right, Carol. I mean, since 2011, this herd has been managed with PZP. And I know the current growth rate is average 2% per year, which is minimal. So it just doesn't make any sense to want to remove any of the horses, especially since we have an aging population and we have so many elder horses within the herd. If younger horses are removed and then the elder horses pass away, we'll be well below AML, I think.
And didn't when I was reading through your talking points, aren't there 59 horses that are over 15? And
That's correct.
What's the number over 20?
Yes, I think there are 22 that are over 20. 22 of those 59 are over 20.
That's quite a lot of older horses.
It is a lot. And I do believe that the mares, they're actually all the ones over 20 are mares. Almost all the ones over 20 are mares. And I do believe that the PZP extends their life because they're not giving birth every year. So the mares tend to live quite a bit longer than what is the norm, maybe at other ranges where they don't do PZP.
Right. So basically, we have the BLM saying they're over this ridiculous number that we came up with for AML, appropriate management level. It's just a random number that they say is all that can be on the range. They're over that number, so we got to do a roundup.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there's almost 115,000 acres in the range. So when you think about 178 horses and this huge range, and saying that there's not enough land for them is just absurd.
It's ridiculous. It really is. And especially when you see the number of cattle that are out there all the time grazing. We had cattle all winter. We've had cattle in the spring and summer. The number of cattle in comparison to the few horses that are on the range. It's just really ridiculous.
Well, and another really good point that you made, which we all need to make, is that they had no study of the damage that the livestock is doing to the range or impact or anything that the livestock is doing to the range. There's no measurement of what the horses are doing to the range. So to
Right,
say they need to save the range without
right.
saying what's wrong and how they measured it is also completely unacceptable.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, you absolutely, in cases like this, when you're going to do something as severe as removing so many of the horses, you need data to back that up. You can't just, as an aside, say, well, the cattle are fine, but the horses are ruining the range. So, which it seems like is what's being said. And there's no data at all in the EA to back that up.
And
And,
my, yeah, that's not
that's needed.
okay.
No,
And
absolutely not.
my understanding of when you're doing an environmental assessment, you're complying with NEPA. And
Hmm.
to comply with NEPA, you have to have data to back up what you're
Hmm.
planning to do. And the
Right.
CA doesn't do that at all.
No, there's really no data in there at all. In regards to anything, maybe some, charts about population growth or,
Oh, the new Pop
but,
Equus
oh,
tool.
that Pop Equus, yes, which I didn't really quite, but that's just kind of
Statistical,
a
it's
computer
yeah,
program,
yeah,
yeah, to figure out how large the herd is going to grow. It's not real data. I
no,
mean, there's some information in there showing just, it's really more like age distribution. Okay, that's data, but there's no hard facts backing up the reasons why they're going to do what they're going to do, because from what I can see, it's not necessary. And you've been there many times, Carol, you were just there. It's not necessary.
no, no, it's not. And 2% growth rate. I mean, you would
That's
think
true.
that the BLM would be thrilled with that number
Mhm.
because they're always
Right.
saying, oh, the horses are reproducing 20% a year. To have a 2% growth rate is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Hmm.
They should hope for that and on all the herds.
Hmm.
And so that just doesn't make any sense either. I think the one of the nastiest, sneakiest things is GonaCon in this EA
Mm, yeah.
because they don't even say how they're going to use it. But GonaCon is a
No,
sterilant. I mean, face it,
that's right.
it will
Mhm.
sterilize the mares. And if that happens, I mean, this herd is just going to die out, which may
That's the
be the
end. Yeah.
plan. Maybe the plan, actually.
That's what it almost seems like, that's the plan.
Right.
Because I know in the scoping notice, they only spoke about, oh, the GonaCon with the non-responders, but suddenly it branched out, and maybe it's all mares over 13 that have given birth and added to the herd population. Maybe it's just all mares of any age. So, I mean, you can't, to treat them with two separate contraceptives, it's just out of control. It will decimate the herd, in my opinion.
Right. So please explain what a non-responder is.
Okay, so a non-responder is a mare who's been treated with PZP continually or on schedule and continues to reproduce or have foals even when being treated with PZP. So she just doesn't respond to the contraception of the PZP and
Okay.
continues to foal. So as far as I know, there are three non-responders, older horses. There could be more that they've identified, but I'm only aware of three
Okay.
that continue to foal
And
with the PZP.
they're older mares as well.
Right. One is 14, two are 17. So honestly, they're really kind of getting, especially the 17-year-olds, getting to the end of their childbearing age. So, and the two 17-year-olds did not have any foals this year. The 14-year-old did. But yeah, yeah, the way they kind of snuck in all these permutations about how they're going to use the GonaCon, it's really quite distressing, especially because with all the different inconsistencies, we can't quite figure out what their plan is. It's not spelled out in specifics. Everything is contradictory, in my opinion. Especially that really sticks out to me, the GonaCon use.
Right. So yeah, so basically in the EA they give they give the no action alternative, and then they give the proposed action. They list it out.
Right.
And in the
Mm-hmm.
proposed action, they don't even say, so AML is 70 to 140. They don't even say what number
Mm-hmm.
they're planning to take. It's just AML.
Nope.
And so we have really no
Mm-hmm.
idea. We had been told it was going to be high AML, but it could be low AML.
Mm-hmm.
And and
That's right.
also the 10-year plan thing is seems to be what the BLM is sneaking in all of the new plans now. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, this is
Uh-huh.
violating NEPA, because you should, every time you
Mm-hmm.
take an action on a wild horse herd, you should have an
Mm-hmm.
environmental assessment and an opportunity for the public to comment and to say, okay,
Right.
this is going to cover 10 years, and we're just going to be able to go in there and remove horses anytime we want over the next 10 years using this document. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
it should be challenged in court, actually.
I hope so. I hope it is because I agree with you. It should be challenged in court. It's it's very vague. We're not sure what they're doing. I mean, how do you respond in your comments to that when you're not sure exactly what the plan is?
Right.
And I don't know if it's purposefully vague. Perhaps that there's a good chance of that, I imagine. But I just really a lot of it is hard to figure out.
Right. And one point that you brought up in your talking points, which I thought was very, very important for
Mhm.
everybody to speak to, is the time of year.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
they're saying they can do it, the bait trap, this year between
Mhm.
November and March of next year. And
Mhm.
winter can be very, very cruel and very unpredictable and very harsh
Mhm.
in this area.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
if you could talk a little bit about what you said about that and access to the range.
Sure. Well, in the EA itself, it mentioned three kind of, or two, I guess, scenarios with regard to the bait trapping and the timing of it. The first scenario mentioned some sort of again, very vague. It mentioned some sort of environmental conditions, which if you kind of read into it, you might think, okay, well, if we encounter environmental conditions like winter conditions, we may just cancel and postpone for a while until the weather gets better. But in two other sections within the EA, it sounded as though the plan is to continue when the weather is stormy, wintry, blizzardy, because it mentions plowing out the roads that go to the trap. I mean, we've had some snowstorms here, and you know what it's like in Wyoming. It's so windy. I mean, the snow drifts over. You can't get on the range sometimes for days or weeks when the weather is like that. Sometimes the weather is so bad with the storm and the wind that even plowing main highways is impossible. So
Yes.
the fact that they're stating that they're going to, it makes it sound, again, not specifics. It doesn't give you 1, 2, 3 in our procedures. It doesn't tell you exactly what they're doing. But if you read into it and you try to infer, it says they're going to plow to the horses. Now, it also states in their SOP, which is attached to the EA, an SOP for bait trapping, that the horses have to be checked every 10 hours if
Right.
they're in the trap, and they have to be fed and given water. Now, if we have a blizzard, there is no way, if there are horses in that trap, that people are going to be able to access them. And then what happens to those horses?
Right.
If perhaps the EA could have been rewritten, maybe it's just confusing the way it's written, but the way it's written now, it does sound like they're going to continue during bad weather. And there is no discussion of if there's bad weather, we'll postpone, we'll make sure there are no horses in the trap. I mean, you can't even walk in there sometimes. The wind is so bad, the snow, the drifts. If the horses are in traps somewhere, who's going to take care of them? No one. And
Right.
then they could die.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
So, yes, it's just
Yeah,
not thought out very well at all. And
no, it really isn't.
and you know, not saying exactly how many horses they're going to take. I have never heard of an environmental assessment that didn't say an actual
Mhm.
number.
Mhm.
Um, it's just absurd. I mean, it gives them
Right,
complete leeway to do whatever they want. Well, of course they do that anyway, but I mean, they
right.
don't, they, it's like, well, maybe they didn't want to get people mad, so they didn't want to tell them what the number actually was.
That's what it seems like. Yeah. I mean, I've only reviewed a few EAs, but the last one that I've seen, they even went into a breakdown of specific horses they were interested in taking because so and so had a hernia, or this one had a lot, had a lot of offspring, or this, that, or the other. It doesn't even, I mean, it doesn't give you any detail like that, but to not tell you how many, you don't know how to respond. I mean, it
Right.
could be anything. It could be 70, it could be 140. Who knows how
Right.
many they're going to take?
Right, right. And then genetic viability is a huge factor because, of
Absolutely.
course, our leading geneticist for wild horses, Gus Cothran, he says there
Hmm.
needs to be at least 150
Hmm.
adults in a herd to maintain genetic viability.
Hmm.
And this number is going to take any number that they take is going to take the herd
Hmm.
below the number of genetic
Oh,
viability.
absolutely.
And then their
100%.
their solution is we'll bring in horses from other herds. And
Oh, oh.
and putting these horses in holding facilities and then bringing other
Hmm.
horses in is just the most rear backward method of doing anything.
I know. No, you're right. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, why not just maintain the horses you have?
Yes.
It just doesn't make any sense. And with we don't know how many they're gonna remove. We have all these elder horses that many of them don't look like they'll be able to make another winter. They're, over 20, some are over 25. They don't look well. Um, the numbers are going to be much lower than what's required for genetic viability if you have the combination of removal and the death of many of the older horses, which could happen. I mean, they can't live forever. I'm glad they live into their 20s, those mares, but some of them look very thin. I mean, you saw a few of the horses that are older. They don't look well.
Right.
It was a tough winter, and they're now it's hot. That takes a lot out of them. It's just it's not a good plan. It's just, to me, it looks like a plan to decimate the herd and just
Appease the ranchers.
lead them to, yes, absolutely, appease the ranchers and bring the herd to the brink of extinction. I mean, especially with the GonaCon use, it's too loosey goosey, their plan with that. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, and you live not that far from Cody. And I think that the horses have
Right.
been for many, many, many years a very big tourist attraction to the town. People come from all over the world to see these horses
Oh, they do.
because they're spectacularly beautiful
Hmm.
and they're easily accessible, which is not
Hmm.
true of a lot of herds.
Right.
So they're really a very valuable herd and a very valuable draw to the area. Of course, they're not as popular as
Hmm.
Yellowstone, but still, people do come to see the horses.
They do. I mean, I agree 100%. And, if we didn't have Yellowstone right next door, the horses would be the big draw to the area. But
Yes.
Yellowstone kind of overshadows everything. But the horses need to be taken into consideration as a tourist attraction because it brings a lot of people in.
Yes, yes. And people, I mean, I saw two tour groups out there when I was there, and
Hmm.
yeah, and people do drive in by themselves to go see the horses.
Hmm.
And it's wonderful also having a herd that you can get close to without them
Yeah.
running away, which is
Right, right. No, that is nice. It
it's
is
not true
nice.
for all the herds that I visit. So it's really
That's true.
refreshing. So it's a pull
Uh-huh.
for it's a pull for photographers, but also people who just love wildlife and love horses.
Right, right. Yeah, it really is. And I noticed the last few years, a lot more people being interested in these horses and coming to visit and making multiple trips a year to come out to see the horses. So I think a lot of people will be brokenhearted if these horses are gone, or or the numbers dwindle down to nothing.
And
And,
yeah, so tell me a little bit about when you go out to see the horses, because you have
mhm.
stories about all these horses. You have stories about their
Oh,
families. You have stories about
yeah,
the individuals. So tell me a little
sure.
bit about what that's like.
Well, goodness, I spend so much time with the horses. It's like they're my friends and they're my other family. I worry about them and, worry about, is this one okay? Or this one had an injury or what have you. And, to see how they, I guess I always loved horses, but before I moved out here and got to spend time with wild horses, I didn't really know about the tight family groups and, the interactions between, horses that know each other, and it's really very touching. And the thought of them being separated, it breaks my heart, really. It really does. And just as an example, not to breaking my heart, but the family part. Um, we had an older 3-year-old colt who was in a band with his stepfather, and his dad, who is Tacula, was a bachelor hanging out, whatever. And the colt got kicked out by his stepdad, and he joined up right with his father, so they obviously know each other and they're so close. They're grooming each other. I was watching them today. It's just, if you don't spend time with them, you wouldn't know that. I didn't know that.
Right,
And
right.
and it just kind of draws me in, and I feel like I want to protect them somehow. I wish that I hope that we can.
Yes.
um, you know, because they're really special. And if they're gone, and the thought of their families breaking up, I can't imagine how upset the horses will be to lose their close daughter or bandmate that's their favorite, or it's just it's heartbreaking, and that's not really considered, and
No,
which is sad.
no. And I think the biggest problem with these plans for roundups is that the BLM never considers what's going to become of these horses afterwards. Um,
Right.
During a roundup, they're separated from their families. The mares are separated from the stallions.
Mhm.
The foals are
Mhm.
separated from the mares, and they're shipped off to holding
Right.
facilities. And they
Mhm.
could live out their lives in these holding facilities, or with the
Right.
AIP, the Adoption Incentive Program, people can adopt them, get their $1,000 and
Mhm.
dump them at slaughter auctions. And so the
Right. Right.
welfare of the horses is never considered.
No,
Um,
it's not.
and bait trapping may be seen as more humane than helicopter roundups,
Mhm.
but especially with contractors doing bait trapping, horses get injured,
Oh, I'm
horses
sure they're
die.
going to get injured. I'm sure they'll get injured in that close. They're not used to being closed in. If you have one family member on one side and they're on the other side, I can't even imagine. And they're in there for, I would think, if you're only going to check every 10 hours, they're in there for a lengthy period of time. I could imagine injuries happen quite often.
And, we really would like the BLM to do this internally, because
Mhm.
then you have a chance of having people who actually know how to deal with horses humanely and care about
Mhm.
them, and
Right.
also know who's who, and know
Right.
that way how to decide which horses to take.
Mhm.
But this
Mhm.
EA just weasels around and says, well, we're going to maybe do it internally, and maybe we're
Mhm.
going to use a contractor, which would probably be the coutures. And
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
really do not want that to happen either. So
Mhm.
just that incredible vagueness is so disconcerting.
It really is. It really is. I mean, is in your experience, is that acceptable to have
No,
something so nebulous out there? It's not. Okay.
this is the worst written EA I have ever seen
Wow.
in 19 years of reading these EAs for the herds that I
Oh
know.
my
And
goodness.
and
Mhm.
they also should have had all of the comments. You know, there were over 4,000 individual comments made, and
Mhm. Mhm.
they didn't even talk about them. Usually you have a
Mhm.
whole section of the EA, which is usually like 30 pages or so, where they
Mhm.
group the
Mhm.
comments by topic, and then talk
Mhm.
about each one and address each one. They didn't do this at
Mhm.
all. So
Wow.
it's like supposedly they read all the comments. Well, did they really?
Mhm.
Are they going to read these comments? I
I
it
don't know.
it's just it's frustrating. And I
Mhm.
think the thing that this herd does have going for it is that there are a
Mhm.
lot of people who care about these horses. And
That's
so
true.
I think that the really important thing to encourage people is to say, listen, you need to comment. You really need to step up
Right.
and do this right now, because it's really
Right.
important.
Mhm. No, absolutely. I mean, we need people who care about these horses to send in their comments and, just take a few minutes and write something up or use our talking points to help you put your comments together. I mean, the horses really need us. They don't know what's coming. So we have
No,
to try and help them.
absolutely, absolutely. And yeah. And so, what's your experience this year being out on the range? Is it in good shape?
Yes, it looks very good. I mean, we had so much rain, we had a lot of snow, and then we had a month and a half of rain. The water holes are overflowing. Dry Creek is still flowing. The grass is up to my knees. I have to bring a fire extinguisher with me, which I haven't had to do for a long time. The horses, right? The horses are putting on a lot of weight. They look relaxed. They have so much water. I mean, they're just going from a different place to another like every day. They don't have to just go, okay, there's only one spot with water, so we're going to go here. It's a really good year for them out there, and it would be a shame to take them away from that.
Yes.
They look relaxed. They after such a hard winter, they deserve to relax a little bit. So, yeah, they look really good, and the range looks good. Um,
So the timing sucks. I mean, really,
yes.
when you say, okay, the range looks bad, there's no water, okay, we need to have a roundup.
Hmm.
No, that's not the case at all.
Right. No, not at all.
So what's the fire? What's your hurry? What's the fire? I mean, I just don't understand what the big deal is getting these horses
Mhm.
out of here.
No, I don't either, and I don't understand what makes the McCullough Peaks herd, who, as you stated before, is like a model of,
Birth
using
control.
PZP, right, managing the population. Why do if you're going to do that, why do you have to decimate the herd? It doesn't make any sense. And why now, suddenly?
Right, right. And okay, so it's over AML for by 40.
Hmm.
I mean, there are herds that are over AML by far more than this. So,
Right.
I mean, I just have to wonder what the big deal is. I
I
mean,
don't know.
yeah, it just doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. I think, part of it may be because they're so accessible. Do they think it would be easy to get them and take them away and then that would one down? But again, that makes me wonder if last time we had a bait trapping operation was January 2013,
Yep.
and it was only lasted about 2 weeks. Now
Right.
this is, as per the EA, it's February to March. Why is it going to take so long? How many horses do they plan on taking?
November to
That's what,
March. November to
sorry,
March. Yeah.
November to March. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just, if they were only going to take 40, why so many months of that? I don't understand.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense unless they're going to take a lot of horses.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I don't know what to say about the EA. It's confusing and it just doesn't address a lot of our concerns that we had, just kind of glosses over them and just kind of goes their own way. So,
So, and then just to let everybody know, the comments have to be in by August 12th at 4:30
yes,
p.m. Mountain Time.
yes, right.
And so, and then after the comment period is over,
Hmm.
um, they can issue a record of decision when they have
Hmm.
finalized their plans.
Hmm.
So that's what we would wait for after that.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just don't even know. what that's going to look like at this point.
May I ask you, the record of decision, do you think that it would have more particulars and specifics in
Oh,
it?
yes, it's supposed to,
It would.
but the
Okay.
EA is supposed to as well. The
I know,
EA is
that's what
supposed to
doesn't make
give
sense.
exact information on what they're going to do, when, how they're going to do it, all that sort of thing. And
Right.
they just threw a lot of information about GonaCon in there and didn't even say how they're going to use it.
No,
So
no, they didn't.
yeah, yeah, I think that's just crazy.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
and GonaCon, people need to, if people are interested, you should do some research on how
Mhm.
GonaCon has been used and what the results have been, because it's very
Mhm.
interesting. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I strongly believe that this herd needs to be left alone
Mhm.
at this point
Mhm.
and continue
Mhm.
the PZP program,
Mhm.
and not introduce GonaCon, not remove a third, a half, however many of the horses.
Mhm.
And
Right.
and I think people really need to speak out and say that.
I agree with you 100%. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, the herd needs to be left alone, and we need to tell the BLM that we think the herd needs to be left alone.
Yes, absolutely. And they're a national treasure.
They really are.
And I know, of course, I this herd has always been very near and dear to my heart, and it's one
Mhm.
of my favorites. And I would
Mhm.
like to see people be able to go out and visit the horses for many, 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 many years to come. And I would like to not see these horses in holding facilities.
No, no, I mean, they might go to holding facilities and I mean, if they go to Wheatland or someplace like that, will we ever see them again? Will they be able to be adopted? What's going to happen?
Right.
Who knows?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, anything
Yeah.
else you can think of, Sandy?
Gosh, maybe we should mention that they're not accepting written comments. It has to be by computer
Yes.
only on their website. So maybe you could mention that, or we could talk about that.
Yeah. So that's EAs they've been getting more and more restrictive about how they receive comments. It used to be that you could email your comments or mail your comments. Now they
Mhm.
have their e-planning website and you comment through there, which can be very
Mhm.
confusing for people. Sometimes
Right,
for people who are very not tech savvy, it can
right.
be very daunting. And now they're limiting it. You can't even send in written comments, which doesn't make any sense to me other than they just don't want comments.
That's pretty much what I thought. They want to cut down the number of comments they're going to receive because I'm sure a lot of people, print out their comments and mail them, and they don't want them.
Yeah, they don't want them. So I'm going to offer that I am willing to help people who are having trouble submitting their comments.
Mhm.
Also, you can contact the BLM directly and have
Mhm.
them walk you through it as well. That's
Mhm.
their job.
Right.
And it's really much easier. You really do need to get on a laptop or a desktop because
Mhm.
it's harder to do it on like an iPad or something like that.
Yeah, on the phone too. I know a lot of people tell me I can't do it. It's really hard to do on the phone.
Yes.
So
So
yeah,
I
that's
really encourage people
not
to use
ideal.
a laptop or a desktop to submit
Right.
their comments.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And print out a copy when you get your comments up,
Mhm.
so that you have them on hand. And I think that's a good idea.
Mhm.
And come visit these horses. I'm always encouraging people to get out there and see for
Mhm.
themselves, see the horses, see the land, see what it's like. And
Mhm.
you can't help but fall in love with these horses if you
No, you
spend time with
can't.
them.
You can't. Yeah, I have some friends that are coming out to see them again because they're afraid they'll be all gone. So they're gonna come in August and see them. So yeah, we don't want to think about that, but it could happen
Right. It,
in
it could
a
happen.
number of years. Sure.
Yeah. We don't want that to happen.
No, no.
So as I mentioned, I'll have on my website. There'll be links to Sandy's blog and to her talking points, and I'll also have some talking points of my own. And I really encourage you to use those and say your comments in your own words. There are sometimes organizations come up with these email letter things that you just sign on to. The BLM Councils is one.
Right.
So they are only going to consider individual comments. So that's what we
Mhm.
really need at this point.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The horses need all the help they can get.
They do. They really do.
Yeah,
And they deserve it.
they do. They do. And they look so happy now. So let's keep them that way.
Exactly. Exactly. And so yeah. And Sandy, I really want to thank you for coming on here and sharing your experiences and speaking so passionately for these horses.
Well, you're very welcome, Carol, and I appreciate you asking me. Thank you very much.